Today, we're talking about taking responsibility. We feel more in control of our lives and hopeful about our ability to shape our future when we make ourselves accountable to others and choose to be responsible for someone or something. This control is really very important at times like this, when many of us feel powerless and stressed because of what's happening to us. My guest today is Alan Jope, CEO of Unilever and a leading corporate thinker on how to make business practices sustainable, both for people and the planet. Alan, thank you for joining us today and being part of CLEAR's 14-day resilience building challenge.
Thanks very much, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you today.
Just before we get into some of these questions, I'm just curious, how are you coping? How are you doing during this pandemic and all the disruption to your life?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I guess we're all first and foremost worried about, at a personal level, about our friends and colleagues. We've had tears in the Unilever executive, tears of sadness when people have passed away, colleagues and family members. Tears of happiness, actually, when people have made it out of ICU. We've had people who were told, their families were told that they wouldn't make it, and then they were clapped out of the ICU yesterday, actually. I've got this strange combination of, I feel I have lots of time because there's a huge capacity unlocked from shorter meetings and not traveling, but also intense feeling of busyness from dawn till dusk working on assorted remote connecting technologies, also trying to manage the here and now and worry about what might a new normal look like. So busy, but centered and fine, actually, quite comfortable.
I can really relate to that idea of having to change how we're interacting with people and indeed not traveling quite the same way as well. So I'm just curious if you could tell us just a little bit more about yourself and your role, just to help people understand just the huge responsibilities that you have.
Well, after leaving university and needing a job, I joined Unilever 35 years ago, and somehow or other seemed to have found myself as the chief exec of the company. I do feel that the last 35 years prepared me reasonably for the job. I'm surrounded by a fantastic team, immediately by the Unilever executive, but more broadly, the 150,000 women and men who work for Unilever. That's the support network that I have. I'm married and have got 3 great kids, and we live, I guess, in theory in London, but right now we're up here in Edinburgh in Scotland.
Oh, I see. Well, in some ways, you're hinting at my next question, which is, even though you're right at the top of a huge organization, huge business, but I'm curious, who do you feel accountable to? Who do you have, in a sense, feel that you are answering to? Because we know that having that as part of our life, being needed by others, is a big part of resilience.
The technical answer that I should give to that question is that Unilever has a multi-stakeholder model, and that I feel accountable to all those stakeholders, to our employees, to our consumers, to our customers, to societies, the planet, and ultimately to shareholders. The honest answer is that I have a profound sense of responsibility to the people who work at Unilever. We have an absolutely amazing team, and I worry about whether they are being as well led as they deserve to be by me and the other leaders in the company.
I can really understand that. So I'm curious then, you take responsibility, obviously, is one of your ways of feeling good and staying connected. How do you encourage responsibility in your staff?
I know you mean well saying your staff. I don't think of them as my staff. I think of them as my colleagues, and in many cases, my friends. I think our culture creates a sense of responsibility through trust. I profoundly believe, and I'm wired, that if you give someone or let someone define for themselves clear expectations and goals, and if people feel rewarded with and privileged with trust and space to operate, the pressure that we put on ourselves, the sense of responsibility and accountability that we put on ourselves is far, far greater than any kind of tight control mechanism, management by objectives. So I really feel that if we let people define their own goals, create a sense of responsibility and trust, and there is, I suppose, an element of rewarding people in different ways for delivering what they said they will do or over-delivering. And I mean that really multiple ways of rewarding, you get extraordinary performance.
So if you had perhaps a junior colleague who was wanting to take more responsibility to build up that resilience part of their life, any quick advice, a simple advice for them that if they want more responsibility?
It's rather simple advice, which is to ask for it. That always helps, and you'd be surprised how infrequently we hear that. The second thing is to come at it from a sense and perspective of learning. I would like more responsibility because I want to grow is extremely compelling. Thirdly, to prove that you're ready for more responsibility by doing a half-decent job in the responsibilities that you've already got. And I would personally counsel avoiding using the requests for more responsibility as a mechanism for upward progression in the organization. People who do a great job because they want to do a great job, oddly enough, seem to end up moving up the organization. People are always looking a little bit too far down the road on what's in it for them in their career, and are looking for opportunities to sort of showboat or credit seek. Somehow or other, often seem to stub their toe. So there's some beliefs that I've built up over the last few years.
Speaking from where you're sitting in the position you sit in, that is amazingly helpful advice. But could I turn the tables ever so slightly and just ask you, if it's not too personal, have you ever been asked to take responsibility for something that maybe you felt overwhelmed by and uncomfortable with? And might I ask what you did with that when the responsibility was dropped on you?
Repeatedly and consistently been asked to do things which I thought I was not ready for. Once I get over the element of fear and terror, which I freely admit is there, I would give the rather folksy advice also: get stuck in, be open about any anxieties that you have, and ask your colleagues for help. I mean, I made no secret of the fact that I was anxious about being asked to become the chief executive of Unilever, and it's just unbelievable the support that I've been privileged to receive from inside the organization and outside the organization, interestingly. I can remember probably the biggest step was when I was in my mid-30s and asked to run the Unilever business in North America, the home and personal care business. I didn't feel at all ready for it, and the biggest unlock was to admit that I didn't feel ready for it and ask for help.
Wow. And sort of following from that, there must have been moments where things didn't quite go as planned, just the nature of life. We're experiencing all kinds of crises right now. What do you think we can learn from events like this kind of pandemic, the crises that many of us are in? Is there something that we can learn from all this?
Well, let me separate the answer into two things because they are different. The ordinary course of business for Unilever, I think we have to remember that we are selling soap and soup, and that it's generally not really a case of life and death, and we will all make tons of mistakes. And I'm a sucker for a good old-fashioned sorry. If someone says to me, I screwed up, I got it wrong, it didn't go well, what can you say? It's completely disarming when someone owns up that something's not gone very well. And it's not life and death. We go at it with our best of intent, and things for sure will not go well. In fact, if things always work out, we're not aiming high enough. And that's it's just not that important. what's important is to give it your best shot. I think the current situation is different because it is life and death. And that's why, we really have been operating at Unilever for the last couple of months, and before that in China and Italy, with an abundance of caution and taking bold moves, decisions very quickly designed to support and protect our people in matters of life and death. I'll give you just one example. On the 12th of March, our global incident management team said to me and others, we recommend a indefinite, mandatory work from home order globally. And on the Thursday, the 12th of March, that seemed a ridiculous overreaction. By the time we announced it on Friday, the 13th of March, it seemed just the right thing to be doing at the right moment in time. It was about 10 days ahead of, let's say, the UK response. And by the Saturday, the 14th, I was worrying that we hadn't done enough or gone far enough. And we've subsequently, for many people who have continued to come to the place of work in our factories, the safest place they spend parts of their day is actually in a Unilever factory. So when it comes to matters that are life and death, it does have a extreme clarifying effect on our decision making, because the prioritization, the criteria against which you're making decisions becomes unitary.
It's so interesting to hear how a business is, in fact, making individuals more resilient, but whole communities and indeed our countries more resilient as well. Alan, that's all the time we have for today, but a huge thank you for agreeing to participate in Clear's 14-day resilience challenge, and all the best to you and your family.
I do think that resilience begins with a good understanding of who you are and being true to yourself. And I also think that resilience at work is a learned behavior, and understanding that people throughout the organization at all levels are racked with self-doubt and insecurity and press on regardless is maybe helpful for other people to be aware of. So thanks for the project, and thanks for the chance to share some thoughts.
Inspiring words. Huge. All the best to you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.
So today's theme is taking responsibility. Becoming more responsible gives us a greater sense of control over our lives. But it works both ways. We can choose to be responsible for someone or something, and we can also become accountable to them, knowing that we're actually making a contribution that makes their lives better. We have two activities for today to get you thinking about taking responsibility in your own life. In the first, see if you can find situations where you can feel needed and make a difference to others. And in the second exercise, see if you can find ways to make other people feel needed as well. To access the full instructions for today's exercises, access our website. The link is on our profile button.